The gray light of dawn drew its first blade across the sky over Storm's End, slicing the darkness in a straight, merciless line. Sea spray misted the ramparts, peppering the stone with salt and chill. But Robert Baratheon stood unmoved upon the parapet, larger than life even in stillness, his heavy cloak whipping behind him like a standard in a sullen breeze. He breathed deep, tasting the air, tasting the bite of brine and cold iron, and found within it the same restless hunger that had always driven him. Hunger for the next hunt, the next laugh, the next brawl that shook the rafters. Yet this morning, the taste was tempered by something foreign and acrid. Duty. Far below, the waves hurled themselves against the mighty drum tower foundations, as though yearning to drag the fortress into the black depths. The rhythm was old and constant, a heartbeat that had measured the passage of countless lords before him. Robert listened, yet his thoughts clanged elsewhere, hammer strokes on an anvil he could neither command nor ignore. A wedding. His wedding, and not the wedding the realm believed it would see. There would be no golden daughter of Casterly Rock led to his bed this night, but a golden lion nonetheless. Jaime Lannister. Sir Jaime, once the sweet summer knight, now Kingbreaker, Oathsmiter, the man who slew Aerys yet could never slay his own legend. Robert's fingers closed around the rough stone merlin, squeezing until his gauntlet creaked. The realm buzzed with whispers. Rivalry made romance, scandal turned spectacle. Some dared call it heresy, an affront to the Seven. Others called it the greatest jest since Sept and Barth penned bawdy verses under a false name. But Robert knew what it truly was. Strategite. A move played on the great board by men who wore banners as other men wore cloaks. The north rumbled, Dorne simmered, and across the narrow sea, a boy-king with a silver mane drifted from port to shabby port, gathering ragged followers with every spiced promise of vengeance. Westeros needed spectacle to bind it, a laughter that would drown the echoes of war's drums. And if spectacle demanded that Robert Baratheon marry Jaime Lannister, as thunder might wed lightning, then so be it. He would dance upon the edge of that blade. Damn the cuts. Footsteps echoed on the stair behind him. Even before the hooded servant spoke, Robert knew the voice would not be that of his master Gufharms, or the tireless steward who tracked every cask of wine. It would be Jon Arryn, steady Jon, the quiet river that wore down the sharpest stones. Robert did not turn when his foster father emerged onto the frosty-slicked parapet, though he sensed Jon's gaze take measure of the restless sea, of the man before it, and of the unfathomable gulf between. "You will catch your death of cold," Jon said, voice gentle as snowfall. "I'll catch more than that before this day is out, I have no doubt." Robert forced a grin, felt it sit ill upon him, and let it fade. "Did you ever imagine it would come to this? You, me, and Jaime Lannister in a sept together while half the realm gawks." Jon Arryn's cloak fluttered. "When I took you as my ward, I imagined many things." He moved to stand beside Robert, his narrower frame dwarfed by the hulking King Tobibe. "I imagined storms and battles and tutors lamenting your neglect of sums. But no, not this." Robert barked out a laugh that startled roosting gulls into flight. The maester still curses the day my quill touched parchment. Gods, how I loathe letters. Yet today's fancy contract has more ink than blood in it, and I was made to sign every loop and line. I'd rather face a giant of the hills armed with a feather than face that again." Jon smiled, but his eyes remained watchful. "Ink is cheaper than war. For once." Robert exhaled fog. "But ink does not always bind. Words can be burned. Oaths can be broken. So can swords," Jon said. "Yet we forge them still." Below, the first horns sounded, distant calls from the outer yard where grooms roused destriers, where banners were unfurled to drink the morning wind. The marriage would be staged in the godswood of Storm's End, beneath the bona-white weirwood that clung to life despite centuries of coastal gales. Tradition demanded a septon, but Robert insisted the old gods witness as well. "If we make mock of the Seven, let the old bearded gods bear witness beside them," he had declared, and none dared gainsay him. The weirwood's carved face, half eroded by salt, would stare, inscrutable and impassive, upon what followed. From the parapet Robert could already see a ripple of color. The crimson lion of Lannister, the crowned stag of Baratheon, the falcon of Arryn, even the grey direwolf of the north, Eddard Stark, had come despite winter's first murmurs. That alone lent weight to the event. Ned's eyes would measure honor against insolence. If he stayed, if he bent the knee, then the small folk would whisper that the gods themselves must approve. Robert wondered if Ned's silence in the face of rumor hurt more than any shouted curse. Jon's voice drew him back. "Have you spoken to Jaime this morning?" "As little as any bridegroom should. Let the fool sweat." Robert's mirth faltered. "I know what you fear. Jaime is no maid to be bought with a song. His pride could shatter a mountain." "Pride is brittle," Jon said. "Resolve is stronger." Robert grunted. He agreed. Chain or no chain, he could have fled back to Casterly Rock. "And yet he rides to me, bright as summer. Do you think he loves me, Jon?" The question tumbled out, half jest, half something raw. "I think he loves the game," Jon said softly. "And you are a piece too rare to refuse." Robert remembered Jaime's smile. Lazy, cruel, beautiful. As the Kingslayer had dismounted in the courtyard 2 days past, sunlight gilding his hair. "Why, Robert Baratheon," he had drawled. "I hardly recognize you beneath so much velvet." Robert had answered with a booming laugh and a cuff to the shoulder that would have cracked lesser bones. Their banter had rippled through the castle, wine following words until both men collapsed into chairs before the hearth, sparring with jests late into the night. Yet beneath it all lay tension, coiled like a viper. Robert had felt it each time Jaime's green eyes lingered on him, searching for something neither armor nor jest could hide. A gull shrieked overhead. "Hells," Robert muttered, stamping once to restore flow to his chilled feet. "The dawn is sweet, but I'd rather greet it with wine." Jon laid a gloved hand on Robert's arm. "Not yet. You will need a steady head, my boy. For vows." Robert scoffed. "I could recite them dead drunk." Jon's gaze held him. "You will need more than vows. Today you bind a lion in golden chains forged of laughter and scandal. Let them break, and he will turn. You must give him something stronger." "Nowhere." Robert looked away to the sea, where the horizon bled from pearl to rose. "What stronger thing is there?" "Respect," Jon answered. "And truth." Sir Jaime Lannister stood before the full-length mirror in Lady Cassana's abandoned solar, the highest chamber secured for Lannister guests in Storm's End. Maids moved around him like birds about a statue, sewing, smoothing, straightening. His cloak, new, resplendent crimson over a doublet of hammered gold silk, lay waiting upon a cedar trunk, its weight judged and approved by his sister the night before. Cersei herself had pressed the folds, her fingers lingering as though seeking the seams of her own reflection. But Cersei was miles away in King's Landing, nursing indignation sweet as Dornish red. For the first time since the cradle, lion twins would be parted on a night that mattered. Jaime flexed his shoulders as a squire cinched his belt. Every plate of his ceremonial armor glittered like molten sunlight. He might have marched to war thus arrayed, save that his sword of ceremony was silver and unsharpened. Pages had oiled his real blade and stowed it within reach, but Jaime doubted steel would settle today's field. Words would. "Your hair, my lord," murmured a maid, stepping on toes to smooth the golden lock. Jaime caught sight of her awed expression in the mirror and rewarded it with a smile so curt it might have severed thread. The girl flushed and backed away. He wondered if she grasped what spectacle her nimble fingers served. The Kingslayer trussed like a gift for the Stag King's feast. He appraised his reflection. Handsome, yes, though shadow haunted the emerald of his eyes. He saw not merely a Lannister but an icon, to be paraded, praised, and perhaps pierced. Yet beneath the pomp, beneath the cunning of his father, and the delight of small folk eager for stories, Jaime felt a current crackling through his blood. Forbidden, some would call it. Others would guard their tongues for fear of scandal's scythe. But the truth was simpler. Jaime Lannister had accepted this farce because it would unshackle him. A wedding ring, no matter its shape, severed swords and severed cells. With Robert's name bound to his, Jaime could at last cast aside the white cloak that had grown heavy as guilt. The Kingsguard would not keep a man wed to the realm's next king. Vows to one crown must yield to another. And after 5 years of wearing white, watching his sister mold herself into a queen while he remained a silent sentinel, Jaime thirsted for color, for freedom. He lifted a single golden rose from a vase, an offering sent by Garland Tyrell or perhaps the Lady Olenna's subtle jest, and twirled it until a thorn pricked his thumb. A bead of red swelled bright. Jaime brought it to his lips, tasting the metallic whisper. A bride's blood, the old crones would say, symbolizes consummation. He chuckled softly and let the droplet fade. If they needed that kind of symbol, he had plenty more where it came from. The door creaked. "Sir Jaime," came a timid voice. "Lord Tywin asks if you require further aid." The young cousin, Sir Devon perhaps, or Stafford's latest whelp, hovered, another pair of eyes to witness the moment. "Tell my lord father that I require nothing but his punctuality," Jaime said, smoothing his sleeves. "The King Tobey waits for no man." The boy nodded and fled. Jaime took a breath, straightened his spine, and turned from the mirror. Light from the narrow windows gilded half his face, leaving the other in soft shadow. Half of light, half of shade. How apt! With measured steps he approached the cloak, lifted it and swung it over his shoulders. The weight settled, and with it came resolve. Robert Baratheon was a storm. Storms could not be halted, only ridden. Jaime would ride this one, and when the winds calmed, the story would be his to tell. He strode for the door. In the courtyard, the festivities prepared to ignite. Gleam-tuned lutes beside wagons heaped with barrels. Servants hurried with bright ribbons for the tiltyard's rail. A boar already sizzled upon a spit, the smell crackling through damp air. Amidst this bustle, Eddard Stark felt oddly a guest at his own funeral. He had ridden from Winterfell, 3 weeks, through sleet and hail, driven by loyalty to the friend who once lifted a fallen boy by sheer force of will. Yet here, amid crimson and gold, Ned sensed a game whose rules shifted beneath his feet. Across the yard he spied Catelyn speaking with Ashara Dane, laughter covering concern like silk over steel. Their children played with toy wooden stags, oblivious. Ned lifted a hand in greeting. Kat's smile warmed him, but her eyes flicked to the banners overhead. Lannister lions and Baratheon stags entwine. She looked back at him meaningfully. He nodded. They would talk later. When the horns blew thrice, the yard hushed. Robert Baratheon emerged at the top of the broad stair from the keep's great hall, flanked by Jon Arryn and his younger brother Renly. Robert wore a doublet of deep black velvet trimmed with gold antlers, and upon his broad shoulders rested a cape of ermine. In his right hand he carried a goblet of red wine already half empty. Ned's mouth tightened. So much for a steady head. Yet Robert's stride was sure, his grin bright, even as he tossed the goblet to a steward and spread his arms. "My lords, my ladies." His voice cracked like thunder, carrying to every corner. "Today we wed a storm to a lion, a stag to summer's sun, and by every god above and below, we shall drink until the sea itself begs us cease." Cheers erupted. Ned clapped politely, feeling the wind of change in the roar. Somewhere a drumbeat began, quick and insistent. Armor clinked as knights raised arms. A second hush fell when Jaime Lannister appeared on the opposite stair, accompanied by his father and his sister's dwarf, Tyrion, resplendent in sable and scarlet, eyes bright with mischief. Tywin Lannister's impassive face betrayed neither pride nor ire, but Tyrion grinned as though paid by the width of his smile. Jaime paused upon the highest step, sunlight striking hair and steel alike, and Ned heard women gasp. The Kingslayer looked every inch the champion of songs. Only the wary tilt of his mouth betrayed awareness of the stakes. The Septon, rotund and sweating despite dawn's chill, waited at the foot of the weirwood path. Between the two stairs lay a carpet woven of midnight blue, studded with silver stars. A sky rolled out to carry these strange constellations to union. Robert descended first, boots thudding, and Jaime followed, fluid as water. When they met at the carpet's head, Robert extended a hand. Jaime took it. Their clasp was brief yet potent, a spark leaping between opposite poles. Together they walked, slowing as they neared the god's wood arch. The carved weirwood face loomed ahead, red eyes glistening sap like tears of blood. Robert hesitated, then whispered something. Jaime's laugh, low and intimate, floated back and struck the hush like a stone upon glass. Standing among the honored witnesses, Ned studied the pair's joined backs. One broad, dark, and unbowed. The other lithe, golden, supple. Two sides of a coin hammered by unknown mints. He felt a twist in his gut, a warning or perhaps a dawning sympathy. Could such a bond hold? If it failed, war would follow. Yet if it held, would peace be any surer? The realm had never seen its like. As they passed beneath the weirwood boughs, needle-thin leaves trembling overhead, a sudden gust extinguished half the torches lining the path. Smoke curled upward like spectral serpents. The crowd shivered, yet none dared speak. Robert halted, turned to the Septon, and spoke the first vow in a voice stripped of mirth. I, Robert of House Baratheon, take thee, Jaime of House Lannister, to be my... He paused, lips twitching as though searching. Husband? Consort? Lord? Words failed. Robert inhaled. To be my sworn companion, bound by blood and honor, until death claims us both. The Septon nodded, eyes wide. Jaime's voice answered, calm as glass. I, Jaime of House Lannister, take thee, Robert of House Baratheon, to be my sworn companion, bound by blood and honor, until death claims us both. The Septon raised hands to bless. Wind rattled branches, scattering leaves upon armor. Pops of sap hissed in the flames. Somewhere, a raven croaked. The Septon spoke of the Seven's faces, father, smith, and warrior forging new paths, of mother shielding them, of maiden smiling upon bravery, of crone granting wisdom. When he invoked the stranger, a hush deeper than silence followed, and torches flared as though in answer. Time seemed to slow, moments stretching into threads that might be woven into destiny or snapped at a breath. Ned felt each breath of cold like a shard in his lung. He watched Robert slip a ring of braided silver onto Jaime's finger, watched Jaime produce a ring of wrought antler-shaped gold and slide it upon Robert's. Hand upon hand, symbol upon symbol. Finally, the Septon raised his staff. Under the eyes of gods and men, I seal these two souls, these two great houses. Let any who would tear them sunder be struck from grace and cast down into darkness. The final words fell like iron doors shutting. For a heartbeat, nothing moved but the restless sea. Then cheers crashed forth, as sudden and immense as the tide breaking against walls. Horns brayed, drums thundered. Robert seized Jaime's shoulders and drew him into a fierce embrace, gauntlets clanging against gilded pauldrons. Laughter burst from the King Toby's chest, raw and triumphant. Jaime's smile curved slow, refined, but his eyes shone, reflecting torches like twin embers. Fireworks shrieked upward, scattering sparks above the castle like shattered stars. The dawn was full and bright, but still they rose, defying day with man-made flame. Cones of scarlet, fountains of gold. Each explosion mirrored in 1,000 whetstones and helms. The crowd erupted in dance. Musicians hurled themselves into a reel wild enough to wake the dead. Barrels cracked open, spewing froth. Bakers bore forth tables of sweet rolls, shaped as stags pursuing lions through sugared forests. Robert and Jaime strode together onto the dais erected before the ancient oak of Storm's End's yard. A boar's head crowned the feast, its jeweled eyes glinting. Robert grasped a flagon and drained half before slamming it down. Then, to gasps, he seized another and pressed it into Jaime's hand. They drank, foam dribbling down beards and chins. Robert roared approval. Jaime wiped his mouth with the back of a golden gauntlet, then leaned to murmur in Robert's ear. Whatever he said drew from Robert a booming laugh that shook lanterns. As the crowd relaxed, Ned stepped back, merging with the swirl of excited nobility. He spied Jon Arryn near the dais watching like a hawk. Tywin Lannister spoke with Maester Pycelle. his face a mask of marble. Renly Baratheon danced with young Myrcella in circles, making the child squeal. Every vision seemed torn from a tapestry. Too bright, too polished. Ned's unease deepened. He considered the winds whistling between stone teeth above, and wondered what omens the old gods whispered. Catelyn joined him, slipping her arm through his. "Well, time will tell," Ned murmured, eyes never leaving the dais. Robert and Jaime clasped forearms before the assembled peers, a symbol half handshake, half dual start. "Tonight we feast. Tomorrow we watch." Evening bled across the sky and the feast surged within the great hall, a riot of color and overflowing cup. Candles dripped wax like white tears. Roasted eels, stuffed swan, and honey-glazed ham covered trestle tables. Musicians played as though possessed. At the head table, Robert waxed rhapsodic, recounting battles past. Ashford Meadow, the Crag's halls, the Trident's roaring heart. Jaime listened, chin propped on knuckles, one eyebrow lifted in wry amusement. Their shoulders brushed often. Each time, eyes met. Between courses, Robert rose. "My lords," he bellowed, "I would honor my sworn companion." He wavered on the word, then pressed on. "Jaime Lannister has ever been a fearsome knight, yet some say he is chained by his kingslaying shame. I say," he lifted a massive jug, "I say there is no shame in ending madness when others lack the stones." He hoisted the jug and drank, wine spilling onto velvet. "This man," Robert thundered, "saved thousands by felling one bloody fool, and I'll hear no more mewling of broken oaths." Gasps rippled. Tywin Lannister's eyes narrowed. Approval or suspicion, Ned could not tell. Jaime blinked, and something flickered in his gaze. Gratitude? Wounded pride? He inclined his head. "Your generosity does me honor, your grace," Jaime said, voice carrying. "Yet I suspect you praise me mainly to see if I blush." Robert laughed loudest, clapping a meaty hand on Jaime's back. "Let them write it in psalms," he cried. "The stag proud, the lion bold, together they shall rule." The crowd cheered anew, but Ned saw tension gather like storm clouds. Robert's bluntness might prove double-edged. Jaime Lannister lived on reputation. To strip away shame also stripped away narrative armor. Who would fear a kingslayer sanctioned by kings? The feast dragged late. Jugglers hurled torches. A mummer dressed as Aerys stumbled in, only to be chased by a dwarf in stag antlers wielding a wooden sword. Some laughed, others winced. Robert roared until tears rolled. Jaime's smile tightened. At the 11th hour, when moonlight painted the high windows silver, Robert rose again. Silence fell. He extended a hand to Jaime. "Come," he said, voice low but resonant. "Let us greet the night." They left the hall through the side arch, ignoring calls for bedding ceremonies. Those crude rites would ill suit this union. Ned followed at a distance, instincts tugging. He caught a glimpse of them crossing the torchlit yard toward the ramparts, cloaks streaming behind. Guards deferred. Upon the high wall, the wind sang. Robert planted elbows upon the stone. Same spot he had greeted dawn. Jaime leaned beside him, cloak pressed close by the gale. For a long time they spoke softly, words whipping away. Ned kept back, hidden by crenels, uneasy to intrude yet unwilling to depart. "What do you see?" Robert asked. "Possibilities," Jaime answered. Robert snorted. "Lannister riddles." "Hardly." Jaime's hair fluttered, a living flame. "I see 7 kingdoms balanced on a knife. I see Tywin's stare, and Eddard Stark's silence and Varys' soft slippers in Red Keep corridors. I see a boy across the narrow sea who dreams of fire. Most of all, I see 2 men who could become legends or footnotes." Robert's shoulders tensed. "You speak treason, Kingslayer." Jaime's laugh was soft. "Truth is treason to those who fear it." Robert turned. Moonlight carved grooves in his face. "Do you fear it?" "I court it." Jaime met his gaze. "But I wonder if you do." For a moment, they held each other's eyes. Storm blue on wildfire green. Ned felt the charged air, as though a sword might leap into hand. Then Robert exhaled, a gust, and his broad hand rose, resting on Jaime's cheek. The gesture was surprisingly gentle, almost reverent. Jaime did not flinch. Robert's thumb traced an invisible line down the point of Jaime's jaw. "If we fail," Robert murmured, "the realm will drown in blood." "Then," Jaime whispered, "we do not fail." Their silhouettes merged in the moonlight, one dark, one bright, limbs entwining like roots seeking purchase in stone. Ned turned away, a flush creeping up his neck, unwilling to watch. Honor warred with loyalty. Loyalty to Robert, to the vows he would soon make as hand should Robert claim the throne. He found himself praying that the old gods favored mercy. Behind him the wind carried a single low laugh. Robert, rumbling like distant thunder, and then the softer murmur of Jaime's reply. At first light the next morning, ravens took wing from Storm's End in every direction, scrolls tied to slender legs. Some bore words of union, others words of warning, some veiled threats dressed as pleasantries. In Winterfell's rookery, a raven landed bearing the Baratheon seal, and the stark direwolf side by side. Maester Luwin cracked the wax and frowned at the message within. It spoke not of alliances or taxes, but of a hunt. A grand hunt in the Kingswood to celebrate the union, open to every lord who could loose an arrow true. Yet between lines lurked challenge. "Bring your best," Robert bade them. "Bring your bold, your cunning, your hungry knights, for the boar we chase is no simple beast, and the prize we claim is nothing less than the beating heart of tomorrow." So the realm stirred. Lords plotted journey south. Smiths sharpened spearheads. Septs hummed with fervent prayers half-choked by gossip. At every hearth, tongues wagged. What manner of marriage was this? Some called it farce. Others whispered prophecy. But all agreed on one point. Westeros had not seen its like, and in such novelty lay both promise and peril. In Storm's End, Robert and Jaime prepared to ride for King's Landing, where thrones awaited and daggers hid behind every tapestry. They would travel together, a procession equal parts carnival and challenge. Tywin would ride at their left, Jon Arryn at their right, Stark and Martell banners flanking. 1,000 eyes would witness every smile, every accidental brush of fingers, every breath shared. Within Robert's private chamber, lit by shafts of morning sun, the two men faced one another. Jaime adjusted Robert's cloak clasp, antlers of hammered bronze, and smoothed the velvet with careful strokes. Robert watched, expression unreadable. "Ready?" Jaime asked. "A word I've seldom felt," Robert admitted, yet always claimed. He reached, fingers slipping beneath Jaime's collar, tugging until gold met obsidian. "Tell me, Kingslayer, what name shall they give our tale?" Jaime's smile was sudden, fierce. "That depends who survives to tell it." Robert's answering grin was wider still. "Then let us survive, lion. Let us make them choke on stars." They strode from the room side by side, sunlight forging halos around them. Outside, hooves stamped, banners snapped, and the future, brittle, bright, and blood-warm, waited with bated breath. Jaime. The procession departed Storm's End at first light 3 days after the wedding. A mist, soft as unspun wool, clung to the foothills of the Rainwood and blurred the banners into drifting strokes of muted color. Crimson bleeding into sable, gold into stag black, direwolf gray, into Arryn blue. The hush of dawn seemed to muffle even the clink of armor, so that the 1,000-strong column moved like a single creature, striding through dream fog, the steady crunch of hooves and boots its slow heartbeat. Robert Baratheon rode at the fore on a great black destrier named Cudgel, the beast's hooves striking flint from the chalky road. He wore no crown yet, only a plain duskin jerkin beneath a cloak of storm-colored wool. But the way the men looked to him, the way they straightened whenever his laugh rolled back through the ranks, left no doubt who commanded their gaze. Beside him, Jaime Lannister rode a white courser, gleaming as though sculpted from moonlight. The Kingslayer's new cloak billowed like a banner of living flame, each gust catching the vivid crimson and sending it rippling across the gray like a tongue of fire licking mist. Between these two poles of storm and sun rode Jon Arryn, discreet in falcon blue, reins held in a light grip that belied the weight of the realm gathering on his shoulders. Behind them, Tywin Lannister kept pace with a detachment of gold-cloaked outriders whose enameled lion helms turned every shaft of light into shards of morning radiance. Off the left flank, Eddard Stark rode in a knot of northern bannermen, who murmured little and observed much, their grim faces half hidden by the firs pulled high against the damp. The road curved inland through pine-scented glens, where the air tasted of needles and resin, then wound back toward the sea, offering brief glimpses of breakers gnawing at black cliffs far below. Whenever the procession crested one of these bluffs, seabirds wheeled overhead, crying reproach, as though they alone understood the gravity of what the two men had wrought in the ancient courtyard of Storm's End. By midday the sun had burned away the mist, and warmth seeped up from the white road, drawing vapor from the horses' flanks. Robert's good mood swelled with the light. He bellowed hunting songs learned in the storm-lashed taverns of Cape Wrath, roping Jaime into harmonies the Kingslayer scarcely knew. Jaime's laugh came quick, parted from a mouth often pursed in sly amusement, until at last he surrendered and matched Robert note for note, his rich tenor weaving through Robert's thunderous baritone like a golden thread in black cloth. Ned Stark watched them, jaw tight. The closeness between stag and lion had grown in a matter of days from spark to blaze, and while Ned believed in the power of brotherhood more than most, he was not fool enough to ignore the flammable thatch of politics piled beneath the flame. He urged his horse closer to Jon Arryn's side. "They sing as though the world were brand new," Ned observed, voice low. Jon's eyes were narrow slits against the glare. "Every new love thinks itself the first love," he sighed. "I pray they learn its weight ere it crushes them." Ned grunted assent. His gaze flicked to Tywin Lannister, riding silent as a statue of judgment. The Lion Lord's regard lay fixed not on his gilded son, nor on Robert, but on the horizon itself, as if he studied a board invisible to all but him. Ned wondered how many moves Tywin had already plotted, and whether any man living could see far enough ahead to counter them. They made camp that evening in a meadow ringed by ancient olives, whose knotted roots bulged from the earth like the backs of slumbering beasts. Tents sprouted in measured rows. Baratheon black and gold by the brook where water sang over smooth stones. Lannister pavilions beneath the trees. Stark canvas farther uphill, where the breeze kept midge-clouds at bay. As dusk fell, the cooks raised spits, and the smell of boar mingled with thyme and wood smoke, until even the wolves tethered with the northern party whined for scraps. Robert's tent glowed like a beacon, lantern light spilling through the seams. Inside, the king-in-waiting sprawled upon a cedar benches stacked with wine flasks, laughing with Jaime over a game board set between them. Onyx stags and mother-of-pearl lions danced across a field of woven silver thread, pieces snatched and slapped down with gusto. Each victory Robert celebrated by emptying a horn of ale. Each defeat Jaime saluted by flipping a coin to the page hovering nervously by the flap. His private wager with the gods to see how quickly he could grow the lad's fortune. When Jon Arryn entered, stooping beneath the crossbeam, Robert glanced up, eyes bright as hammered sky. "Jon, come wager sense against folly." "I have little sense to spare," Jon replied, but took the offered stool. He studied the board. Stags pressed deep into lion territory, though two crimson pieces threatened Robert's rear flank. "Who leads?" "I do," Robert crowed. Jaime tipped his golden king in sardonic salute. "For the moment, I've yet to spring my trap." Jon smiled thinly. "Spring it softly. Too violent a snap and the realm may feel the tremor." Jaime's gaze sharpened. "Are you the realm's mouthpiece tonight, Lord Arryn?" "I am ever the realm's steward, Sir Jaime." Jon folded his hands. "And at present I hear whispers from every corner of Westeros. Some call your union blasphemy, some hail it as prophecy, but most simply do not know what to think. The unknown breeds fear." "You would dispel fear with certainty?" Jaime asked. "With clarity," Jon said, "and with action befitting the titles you both now claim." Robert drained a cup and set it down with surprising grace. "Speak plainly, father." Jon's jaw tightened at the old endearment. If you two intend to rule, he said, then rule. Kings do not tarry on the road while others gather power in their absence. We ride as swift as any host can, Robert said. Hosts march on grain, Jon countered. We have provisions for another fortnight, yet the summer snows are fickle. If rain turns these roads to mire, the journey lengthens and rumor festers. Jaime leaned back, arms folded. What would you have us do, my lord, hand and all but name? Divide the parties, Jon said at once. You and Robert should press ahead with a vanguard. 50 knights, no more, and fresh horses at every relay. Arrive in King's Landing within 6 days. Present yourselves before the small council. Command the tongues of rumor by facing them in the flesh. Bon, Robert rumbled low. Leave Tywin and Ned following like cattle. Leave the baggage in the slower banners, Jon urged. Let the rumor mongers choke on your dust rather than feed upon your absence. Tywin will keep order in the main train. Eddard will temper him. And you? Jaime asked. I ride with you, Jon said simply. Robert's gaze flicked to Jaime. Well? Care to race me to the gates of my own city, Kingslayer? Dandinadan. Denor. Jaime's smile was pure challenge. If I win, I choose the first royal decree. He paused, eyebrow arched. And if you win, Robert's grin showed teeth. I grant the same. Jon exhaled as though they were boys eager for a jape on the tourney field. Yet in their laughter he sensed a dangerous thrill that might veer too near a cliff for comfort. Still, the plan stood. The realm needed decisive presence. They left at false dawn the next morning, when sky was a smear of indigo and the stars still burned cold. Robert, Jaime, Jon, and 48 chosen knights thundered out of camp, before even the cooks had stirred the ashes of last night's fire. Tywin emerged from his pavilion just in time to watch the tail of the column vanish among dark trees, his lion cloak unmoving though the wind tugged at every other banner. He said nothing, but when Ned Stark joined him, Tywin's gaze flicked sideways. A stag unpenned, he murmured. Let us see where he gore first. Ned's mouth twitched. And a lion riding his back, he replied. Let us hope neither tires. The vanguard rode hard, changing horses at each river village along the Roserad. By midday of the third day they reached Bitterbridge, where Lady Grace Mullendore sent out kegs of bright golden ale to refresh the party. Robert, red-cheeked and elated, accepted with booming thanks, though Jon insisted they linger only long enough to exchange mounts. Jaime slipped away from the revel for a moment, boots crunching on gravel as he approached the old stone parapet of the bridge itself. Below, muddy water dragged at the pilings, swirling eddies littered with broken reeds. A boy knelt on a lower step, fishing with a line of twine tied to a bent bronze pin. His hat, patched with crimson thread, sat askew over coal-black curls. Jaime crouched. What do you hope to catch, lad? River trout, sir. The boy did not look up. The big ones come when the water rises. Jaime watched the line dance idly. Patience is a knight's virtue. My da says patience only feeds a poor belly. The boy glanced up then, and recognition sparked in bright hazel eyes. You're the Kingslayer. A hush seemed to fall, though the ale kegs thumped and soldiers laughed behind them. Jaime rested his forearms on his knees. That name lingers. Is it true? The boy whispered. That you killed the Mad King because he burned people alive? Yes. Would you do it again? The question hung between them. Jaime saw in the boy 1,000 faces, the small folk who would cheer a king they never met, the orphans who choked in smoke while lords debated protocol. He answered not as a knight, nor a husband, but as a man who still felt heat against his cheek. I would. The boy nodded once, solemn. Then he jerked his twine. A silver fish broke the surface, thrashing. Jaime caught it deftly, fingers closing around slick scales. The boy laughed aloud in triumph. Jaime pressed the fish into his small hands. For your patience, he said, and ruffled the boy's hat. When he turned back toward the road, he found Jon Arryn studying him. You cannot rewrite the past, Jon said quietly, falling into step. I would settle for writing the future, Jaime answered. They bivouacked that night, in an abandoned orchard, on the border of the Blackwater Rush's fertile basin. The trees stood heavy with late-season apples, crimson skins glowing in firelight. Sentries plucked fruit as they walked their rounds, munching between calls of "all's well." Robert himself climbed a low branch, shaking apples down upon knights' helms until a barrage of curses and laughter chased him to earth. Later, as the camp settled, Jaime wandered through the filter of sparks drifting skyward. He found Robert seated alone upon a fallen bowl, a wineskin cradled between knees, eyes fixed on the embers of a dying cook fire. The roar of him had ebbed into thoughtful hush. "Mind if I intrude?" Jaime asked. Robert patted the log. "Plenty of room on this throne of bark." Jaime sank beside him. For a while, neither spoke. Night insects hummed. The faint rush of the river mixed with the creak of distant harness. Robert exhaled. "I think of the trident," he said at last. "Not the battle. The water itself chilled my bones even through plate. Every night I dreamed of warm hearths, of feasts. Now I have both in plenty, and still I wake cold." "Naisim." Jaime considered. "War burns bright. Peace leaves space for shadows." Robert barked a short laugh. "And what shadows cling to you, lion?" "Smaller than yours," Jaime said, "but sharper where they bite." He met Robert's gaze. "Do you miss her?" The question lay bare between them. "Lyanna." Robert's knuckles whitened on the wineskin. "Every breath," he said, voice ragged. "But grief has no claim on joy. I can carry both." He studied Jaime. "Can you?" "I carry swords," Jaime answered. "And pride. Joy fits well between." "Mamorim?" Robert's broad hand closed on Jaime's wrist. The calloused thumb stroked the pulse. "Then let us bear each other up. If one stumbles, the other stands." Jaime's heart thudded against the pressure. "A vow worth iron," he said. Robert's eyes glittered with reflected flame. "Better than iron," he murmured. "Iron rusts. Let it be tempered steel." A hush cloaked them. Sparks spiraled above like fleeting stars. Jaime leaned, and Robert met him. Their foreheads touched, a silent oath sealed by breath shared. No heralds announced it, no parchment recorded. But in that quiet orchard, apples gleamed witness, and the old river listened. On the dawn of the 6th day they sighted the Kingswood, its vast green teeth snarling against pale sky. Ravens circled overhead, their cries echoing through the outer copses. John Aaron consulted a rag-edged map at a wayside marker, half sunk in moss. "The Gold Road bends northeast here," he said, finger-tapping inked lines. "If we turn due east along the poacher tracks, we can reach the city by nightfall." Robert surveyed the looming wall of pines. "And the hunt?" "The boar will keep," John said. "Better the king greet his council first." Jaime's smile cut sly. "Or we could combine duties, enter the city with a great tusker slung between our saddles. The small folk love a spectacle." Robert's laughter pealed. He wheeled his destrier. "Then into the wood we ride. Boar first, council after." John opened his mouth, but Robert was already cantering between trees. 20 knights thundering after the swallowtail banner streaming from his lance. Jaime spurred the white courser, catching Robert's flank. John cursed softly and followed. Within the Kingswood, the light turned to green haze where sunbeams speared dust motes, and the air smelled of damp earth and crushed myrtle. Game trails crisscrossed like veins in old parchment. Robert reined in at a muddy patch peppered with fresh prints wide as a man's spread hand. "He's close," Robert whispered. Excitement taut as bowstring. Readied the spears. They dismounted, leaving squires to hold reins. Knights fanned out in pairs, moving with surprising stealth for men clad in mail. Jaime rolled his shoulders, loosening sword arm though he carried a boar spear today. Broad-bladed, with crossguards to keep the beast from running up the shaft. He glanced at Robert, who gripped his own spear like a thunderbolt yearning for sky. Minutes stretched. A jay shrieked. Somewhere leaves rustled. Then a snort ripped through the hush, deep, guttural. Near. Robert's eyes lit. The boar erupted from a tangle of briar, huge as a destrier's hindquarters, coarse hair matted with mud. Tusks, yellow and wicked, gleamed wet in sun shafts. It charged the closest knight, goring thigh through chain. The man screamed, falling beneath churning hooves. "Ho!" Robert roared, leaping forward. His spear flew in a sure arc, point sinking 2 handspans behind the creature's shoulder. The boar shrieked, turned in fury, and snapped the haft like pine kindling, splinters spraying. Jaime dashed in from the flank, planting feet wide, spear leveled. The boar thundered at him, foam flecking black lips. Jaime waited the heartbeat Robert had taught him. Let the beast commit, then sidestepped, thrusting. His blade bit deep in the thick neck muscle. But the angle was off. The tusks caught his greave and hurled him sideways. He hit ground hard, breath exploding. The boar wheeled, bleeding and maddened. Robert seized the broken half of his first spear and plunged forward with a deafening roar, burying wood and iron to the hilt in the boar's chest. The beast's momentum carried them both to earth. Dust and leaves burst skyward. Silence crashed down, broken only by Robert's hoarse breathing. The boar shuddered once, then lay still. Jaime scrambled up, ribs aching. He knelt beside Robert, who lay half beneath the carcass. Blood splattered across beard and breastplate. Yet when Robert opened his eyes, they blazed blue with triumph. He burst into booming laughter that drew every knight running. "You're mad," Jaime gasped, but the grin on his own lips matched Robert's. "Ay," Robert exulted, pushing corpse aside. "Mad enough to rule this bloody kingdom." Jon Arryn arrived, face ashen. "You might rule it from a bier if you don't curb that recklessness." Robert wiped blood from his brow. "The realm needs bold deeds, Jon. Let them sing of this one. We ride to the city with our prize." Down. Jaime offered a gauntleted hand. Robert clasped it, hauling himself upright. As they stood, 2 silhouettes against shafts of slanted light, the knights cheered, a raw, visceral sound that shook birds from the canopy. They lashed the boar to a travois dragged behind Robert's destrier. By the time they emerged from the Kingswood's eastern fringe, the sun lay burning low above Blackwater Bay, tinting the water copper. King's Landing sprawled against its encircling walls, smokestacks painting the sky with plumes of gray and orange. Bells tolled from the Sept of Baelor, calling the city to evening prayer, or perhaps to gape in wonder at the small army approaching at full gallop. As they crossed the rush on the darkening bridge of black stone, small folk lined parapets, cheering, flinging posies. A few stared in awe at the monstrous boar, dragged bleeding through the dust. Children scampered after hooves, crying, "King Robert! King Robert!" Jaime noted with interest they used the title already and felt a quiver of excitement and fear skitter along his spine. Within the Red Keep's outer yard, the royal guard assembled in dress whites. Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, hair white as snow, stepped forward, helm tucked beneath arm. His pale eyes flicked from Robert to Jaime, lingering on the latter with something akin to prophetic sadness. "My king," Hightower intoned, bowing to Robert. Then, turning, "My brother." Jaime dismounted. "Not for much longer, Lord Commander." Hightower's jaw tightened. "Oaths do not unravel so swiftly, even for kings." Robert swung from saddle, landing with a grunt. "Leave the knots of vows to septons. Tonight we feast on board in Mistiar." "Done." Hightower yielded passage, but his gaze followed Jaime like a warning shadow. The small council convened that same night in the painted table room overlooking Maegor's Holdfast. Candlelight licked the painted kingdoms splayed across oak boards, a map at once grand and fragile. Every hillock rendered in green, every river in wavy cobalt. The wall a jagged splash of snow-white bays. Seated around were Grand Maester Pacell, robes rustling, Master of Coin Lord Carlton Chalsted, fingers drumming anxiously, Master of Ships Stannis Baratheon, gaunt and stone-faced, and Varys, the Spider, his bald pate gleaming beneath perfumed powder. Tywin's chair stood vacant, for the moment. Robert entered first, still streaked with blood, but wrapped now in fresh tunic. Jaime followed, hair unbound, ringlets shaken free from helm sweat. Jon Arryn closed the door behind them and took his seat as hand pro tempore. Robert planted palms on the table. "Lords, you see before you the future of Westeros." "Men?" Stannis cleared his throat with a rasp like dry vellum. "I see my brother disheveled, tracking mud into council chambers." Robert's smile flashed. "When next I track, may it be your stern face, Stannis." Pycelle coughed, beard wagging. "Your Grace, rumor of your unconventional union has preceded you. Some high septons whisper anathema." "Then let them whisper to the stranger," Robert said. "The small council, not the faith, crowns the next king." "Yet the faith anoints," Pycelle muttered. "And the faith collects coin from our coffers," Corton Chelstead added, rubbing temples. "Coin now strained thinner than parchment. A grand spectacle wedding and a realm-wide tourney in your honor, your grace. These empty the treasury." Jaime stepped forward. "Forgive me, my lords, but you speak of burdens as though they are shackles. A spectacle can pay itself twice over in loyalty. Allow the people to feast, and they will feed your throne with faith." He felt Varys' eyes glimmer. The eunuch dipped his head. "Wise words, dear sir. Bread and spectacle have ever been twins in the cradle of power." "Naber." Stannis' lip curled. "Spectacle does not build dramans, nor feed soldiers." Robert slapped the map, startling candles. "Enough! The treasury shall be mended. We shall levy tariffs on the Myrish spice ships glutting our docks. Let foreign coin pay for Westeros' joy." Chelstead opened and closed his mouth, then nodded reluctantly. Jon Arryn laced fingers. "Majesty, the realm must also address the succession question. The great houses will want assurance your union secures stable heirs." Jaime felt the hush settle like frost. Robert looked at him, eyes laden with thousands of unsaid things. "That matter," Robert said slowly, "is between my companion and me. The line of succession shall be defined in due course." He turned, stare roving across the council, daring objection. Stannis rose, jaw working. "I am your brother and by law your heir until issue is—" Robert's gaze turned cold. "Until issue is declared," he interrupted. "And issue will be declared when I say, not before." Stannis held the stare, then inclined his head stiffly and resumed his seat. Jon cleared his throat. "Then we must ensure the realm sees unity, not discord. I propose a royal progress through the Reach and the Riverlands after the coronation. Show the great houses their new liege lord and his consort." "A coronation feast first," Robert said. 3 days hence." Varys' fingers steepled. "A bold timeline, your grace. But boldness, like morning dew, evaporates if one lingers." He smiled. "I shall see the city buzz." Jaime's skin prickled. The spider's approval always bore hidden barbs. The session stretched toward midnight. Logistics, grain quotas, fleet repairs, whispers from Volantis of cell sails massing under the Blackfire banner again. Robert listened, guzzling wine yet somehow sharpening with each cup, like steel tempered by heat. Jaime watched, admiring. This larger-than-life man who drew power as effortlessly as breath. But he saw, too, the flicker of fatigue when Robert believed none observed. When at last they adjourned, Pycelle tottered out first, followed by Chelstead. Varys glided into halls beyond, ghostlight. Stannis paused by the door, meeting Jaime's eyes. In that stare swam bleak prophecy. Without a word he turned away. Left alone, Robert exhaled. Jon Arryn rubbed his brow. Jaime drew near, resting a hand on Robert's shoulder. A hard counsel. Robert leaned into the touch. Hard truths, softer lies. Tomorrow I hunt again. This time lures, not boars. And I guard your flank. Jaime murmured. Jon gathered parchments. Guard it well, Sir Jaime. Wolves roam in velvet as often as they do in fur. Jaime met his gaze. No jest now. I do not fear fangs, Lord Arryn. Good, Jon said, eyes weary. Because they are closing fast. Dawn of Coronation Day broke in a blaze of gilded clouds, as though the sky itself had bent the knee. Bells rang a chorus that set the city walls humming. Peripheral streets overflowed, vendors hawking crowned stag pastries dusted with sugar, lion-shaped ginger biscuits dipped in honey, wooden swords for children painted red and black to recall the trident's river blood. The smell of roasting goat melded with cumin and orange peel, and something metallic that might have been hope or might have been fear. Inside the Sept of Baelor, candles tall as men flickered beneath stained glass saints. High Septon Silas, cheeks pouchy, stood before the mother's tear-streaked window, wringing his hands. 3 days of furious negotiation had dragged him here, brow slick with sweat. At the last hour he'd yielded. The anointing oil would flow for Robert. Though rumors claimed Silas had privately drafted a sermon on abomination, should fortune ever favor his nerve. Robert approached the altar resplendent in cloth of silver, so heavy it took 3 squires to arrange, a crown of conqueror's steel resting on a velvet pillow in Jon Arryn's arms. Jaime walked at Robert's left in a flowing mantle of alternating black and crimson, a subtle braid of antlers and lion tails at the hem. Taylor's genius suggestion that awe might soften scandal. The roar of the congregation as the pair processed the nave crescendoed until the stained glass saints seemed to vibrate. Jaime's ears rang. He felt the heat of 1,000 gazes, but he carried himself as though born for such scrutiny. Each step measured, shoulders loose. As Robert knelt before the altar, the High Septon dipped 2 fingers into chrism and traced a stag upon Robert's brow. The silence that fell was total, as if the oil dripped across every tongue. The 7 each were invoked. Father, judge him. Warrior, defend him. Smith, strengthen him. Mother, guide. Maiden, bless. Crone, teach. Stranger, keep death at bay until it pleased. Then Jon Arryn lifted the crown. It glimmered razor bright, points wrought into stylized antlers, each tip set with a ruby drop resembling beadlets of crystallized blood. The hush deepened. Jon hesitated, gaze traveling over the throng, pausing on Jaime, on Stannis, on Tywin, newly arrived. He set the crown upon Robert's head. I give you Robert of House Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the first men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm, Jon proclaimed. The Sept erupted. Bells answered bells. Outside, a flight of white doves burst skyward, swirling above the domes like living confetti. Robert stood, crowned and unquestioned. He turned to Jaime and extended a hand. Jaime stepped forward, unsheathing a ceremonial blade of Valyrian steel so dark it drank light. He laid it across his palms and offered it. Robert grasped the hilt, then reversed the blade and touched it to Jaime's left shoulder, then right, then the crown of his head. Rise, Jaime of House Lannister, Robert said. Lord Consort, King's Shield, First Knight of the Realm. A gasp rippled. Jaime rose slowly, eyes locked to Robert's. Something unseen passed between them. Gratitude, fear, exhilaration so keen it cut. He bowed. From the pews, Tywin's golden head inclined a fraction. Stannis' lips compressed to a bloodless line. Varys smiled barely, like moonlight on glass. When Robert and Jaime exited the Sept, a storm of petals descended from every balcony. Lavender, rose, peony. They clung to cloaks and hair, sweet fragrance dizzying. Amid the riot of color and song, Robert leaned close. The realm is ours, he murmured. Jaime smiled, tasting petals. Then, let us reign. The coronation feast sprawled across the Red Keep's high courtyard beneath silken canopies, strung from turret to turret. Musicians perched on makeshift stages. Acrobats tumbled among tables. A troupe of Braavosi dancers painted in jeweled patterns spun like living mosaics. The boar from the Kingswood, roasted whole and stuffed with lemons, was borne aloft upon a litter of ironwood, garnished with crushed mint and river salt. Robert carved the first hunk himself, juice running down wrist. He pressed a steaming slab into Jaime's hands. To battles won and won again, he toasted. Jaime raised the meat like a chalice and bit. Wine flowed, sweet arbor gold and spiced Dornish red. Jaime traded tales with Brienne of Tarth, newly arrived to swear sword. Sparred verbal thrusts with Oberyn Martell, whose sardonic grin hinted daggers, shook hands with Hoster, Tully, who eyed him as one might weigh a strange coin. Everywhere he moved, whispers followed. Kingslayer turned King's shield. How long until the blade bites again? Near midnight, as torches guttered low and dancers slowed to languid sway, Robert found Jaime leaning against a pillar beneath climbing moonflowers, watching Stannis converse with Davos Seaworth across the yard. "You've not eaten in an hour," Robert said softly. "I've eaten enough to burst chainmail." Jaime tilted his head. "But I've drunk less than you." Robert shrugged. "A king may drink. A king must see clearly." Robert's grin slipped. He looked down at the goblet swirling. "The crown weighs heavier than legends claim." "It always does," Jaime said. He set his hand against Robert's chest, feeling the hammering heart. "But you carry iron in these ribs. Let the wine dull no edge." Robert's eyes softened, bits of torch gold flickering. "Stay with me tonight." Jaime's smile was all answer needed. They slipped away through corridor shadows, climbing narrow stairs past mute guards who averted eyes. In the royal solar, they found silence except for distant revel echoes. Moonlight spilled across the stone floor like milk. Robert drew the curtains and barred the door. Jaime unlaced his cloak. Let it fall. Robert's fingers followed the line of gold embroidery, tracing collarbone, dipping beneath. Neither spoke. Words belonged to the hall outside. Here breath and touch formed language older than houses, older than kings. Cloaks, belts, linen, they peeled away until only skin remained, pale and sun-bronzed in twine. The bed took them like wave-crested surf, rolling heat, and hurled sighs into its deep. After, when sweat cooled and world returned, Jaime lay with head pillowed on Robert's broad chest, listening to the thunder faded to steady drum. His mind drifted to father's face, to Stannis' glare, to the spider weaving. Yet above those worries rose a certainty new minted and bright. This moment could not be undone, and he would not wish it. Robert's hand stroked his hair. "We begin tomorrow," he whispered. Jaime smiled into the dark. "Tomorrow then." Tomorrow greeted them with iron knuckles. Before sunrise, a squire pounded upon the solar door. Jon Arryn's voice followed, urgent, edged. "Your Grace, come. An envoy from Dorne rides under black banners. Word from the Stepstones. Viserys Targaryen has hired the Golden Company. 20,000 swords now sail for Storm's End." Damn. Robert was already striding for his doublet. "Jaime, with me." They dressed in haste, buckling leather and chain. In the corridor, Tywin waited, unreadable. "A dragon stirs," he said. "We must answer." Robert lifted the hammer that had felled Rhaegar. "Then let the dragon bleed anew." Jaime slid his sword free, Valyrian rippling moonlight. "Your shield," he murmured. Robert clapped hand to hilt. "My shield." He met Jaime's gaze. "And my blade." Together they marched toward the council chamber, where war's first sparks hissed upon dry tinder. Behind them, dawn spilled red across the rooftops of King's Landing. And in that blood-bright glow, the stag and the lion walked shoulder to shoulder toward a horizon ablaze with peril, promise, and the thunder of yet unwritten legend. Ikai. Windborne ash rolled across the dawn sky like scattered parchment, each gray sheet streaked by a blood-red sunrise that burned upon the towers of the Red Keep. Within Maegor's holdfast, the council chamber buzzed as steel-shod boots converged on the doors. Robert Baratheon in half-harness, a mail shirt gleaming beneath stag-embroidered surcoat. Jaime Lannister in Kingsguard whites accented by a crimson cloak, whose hem still smelt faintly of the coronation roses. Jon Arryn in pale from too many sleepless nights. Stannis a granite shadow. Tywin cold as winter stone. Varys gliding at their heels like a whisper. Robert slapped the ironwood table hard enough to rattle ink jars. "Viserys lands at Storm's End with the Golden Company. My own bloody seat." "It is a feint." Tywin folded arms, voice glacier cool. "Sellswords win wars only when gold outweighs loyalty. Find their paymaster, cut the purse, and the dragons shrivel." "Who fills that purse?" Stannis demanded. "The coffers of King's Landing are bled thin." "Not ours," Varys cooed. "Whispers say the Iron Bank of Braavos backs this venture." wagering on a boy whose name still stings Westerosi pride. Robert rounded on Jaime. We ride tonight. We smash them before they root. Now. Jaime inclined his head, braid of sun-bright hair falling forward. With what host, your grace? Our levies sit 3 days' march north and south. The Reach musters at Highgarden, and the Storm Lords, well, half whisper you have abandoned their daughters for lion-tailed scandal. Robert's nostrils flared. Then Stormlord loyalty shall be proven at sword point. Renly holds the garrison at Storm's End. He'll keep her walls till we arrive. Renly commands 300 men, Jon interjected. Viserys brings 20,000. Silence, thick as pitch, crept across the painted table. At last, Jaime spoke. Numbers can win sieges, courage wins breaches. We need speed, not bulk. Ride light. 4,000 seasoned Crownlanders, 2,000 Lannister spears already quartered at Hayford. 1,000 Stormland knights rallied by Raven. Strike while the Golden Company unloads horses and grain. Stannis grunted. Sel's-words disembark in shifts. Catch them knee-deep in tide mud and half-armed, could work. Tywin met Jaime's eyes, something unreadable flickering. You propose leading the van? Yes. Robert's huge hand thumped Jaime's back. The lion roars. Good, you spearhead. I break the body. He whirled on Stannis. Master of ships, how soon can our war galleys seal the bay? 6 hours to raise anchors, another 10 downriver to the straits. If the wind holds, it will, Robert growled as though the weather obeyed. Ned commands the capital till our return. Jon looked ready to object, but nodded. I'll counsel Lord Stark. Counsel him to bolster Gate Watch, Tywin added. War breeds riot. Plans unfurled. Messenger ravens, supply wagons, field chirurgeons, siege engineers left behind. Within an hour, Robert's fury became a moving thing, harnessed and marching. The rose shadows of sunset slit King's Landing's haze when Jaime thundered through the mud gate at the head of a picked vanguard. 400 mounted men in half-plate, banners snapping. Crowned stag quartered with roaring lion upon a new field of storm gray. Small folk scattered, cheering or muttering prayers as hooves sprayed gutter water. At the city stables, Jaime changed horses, then spurred south along the Roserad beneath a violet sky peeled open by first stars. They rode through moonless night, torches hooded so as not to paint targets for Sellsword scouts. Past the ruins of Summerhall where wind moaned through cracked tiles, they forded the Wendwater at dawn. Chilled to bone, though summer lingered. Columns of smoke on the southern horizon marked campfires. Golden Company outriders burning homesteads for fodder. Jaime's fists tightened on reins. By midday, the Crownland host swelled. Jowly Lord Harwood fell with 200 green pikes. Grim Sir Gawain Grandison, bearing the dark red griffin of Griffin's Roost. Lady Alice Caron, raven-haired, helm-plumed white, at the head of 70 light horse. Each pledged fealty with wary glances at Jaime, measuring this kingslayer turned consort against rumor of sin. If you follow the stag, follow the lion, Jaime told them atop a tumble of black basalt. My blade guards his heart. Your swords guard his realm. Fail, and the dragon's shadow swallows us all. Understand? They rode on, dust clouds trailing like comet tails. 2 leagues north of Storm's End, scouts galloped back. Golden Company siege lines ringed the fortress, catapults rising like skeletal fingers across the dunes. Gaily painted shields, elephants, skulls, winged serpents, dotted sand ridges, but many companies still massed along ships beached in the bay, offloading trebuchet timbers and sacks of Bervosi flour. Jaime studied the terrain from a limestone outcrop. The main camp sprawled inland, but a column of sellsword knights, emerald cloaks stitched with black dragon, rode patrol between water and walls, their path cut by a dry gulch overgrown with thorny gorse. Jaime tapped the map Renly had smuggled out by Raven. We flank through this gulch at dusk, he told Sir Gawain. Shielded from their lookouts. Caron horse hits their north siege tower. Same heartbeat my van hits the center. Fell's pikes hold reserve, drive any route toward the sea. And you, sir? Lady Alice Caron asked, dark eyes narrowing. I take a wedge of heavy horse straight through their elephant banners. Jaime's grin showed perfect white teeth. Cut the head and the beast wanders. He wrote 2 short notes, sealed with the lion stag sigil, handed them to swift couriers. One to Robert, still a day behind with foot, another to Stannis commanding river galleys. Orders thus loosed, he donned helm chased with pale gold, squared shoulders. Night scented the air with brine and swamp grass as the host slid into the gulch. Drums pounded like thunder at dusk when the Golden Company banners dipped in salute to their prince. Viserys Targaryen, hair pale as frost, stood on a wooden platform near the siege line, bathed in torch glow. Beside him, Miles Toyne, Blackheart the Younger, watched the fortress through a marish lens. Rains of shore sand hissed around iron tools carving trenchworks. Storms and falls by sunrise, Viserys vowed, voice thin but eager. Then King's Landing within the fortnight. I shall wear my sister's rubies upon this brow before the moon turns. Toyne grunted. If the Baratheon dog shows before we breach, this conquest lengthens. He won't, Viserys said. He wallows in sin, betting that lion slut of his. At that moment, a horn's deep roar echoed from the west ridge. Golden Company commanders whirled as torchlight caught glinting lances descending the slope in tight wedge. Jaime Lannister's cloak streamed behind him like liquid fire, his voice a clarion above clamor. For the king, horse and steel slammed into the elephant standard. Exotic mercenaries scattered, bright-plumed helms spinning. Jaime's longsword Blackfire, retaken from Viserys' own baggage chest hours earlier by infiltrators, swept a shining crescent, decapitating a sellsword captain. Panic rippled as men saw the Valyrian blade once wielded by conquerors, now carving their ranks. Kingslayer! Someone screamed, half in fear, half in awe. Lady Alice Caron's riders burst from the shadow, torches ablaze. Ziga Tower wheels ignited, dry pitch catching. Catapults half-assembled toppled beneath crashing beams. Fell's pikemen appeared behind. Wall of points driving survivors toward the surf where Stannis war galleys. Oars, shipping, unleashed flights of flaming arrows. Jaime fought like the storm's own hand. Parry, thrust, wheel, trample. At his side rode Sir Gawain, Red Griffin's standard, drenched black with spray as waves of horse churned sand to bloody mire. Trumpets on the sea wind heralded Robert's main column cresting the northern headland, mailed foot stamping in cadence, hammers upon shields forging thunder. Viserys watched white-faced as his elephants squealed and fled. Howdahs ablaze. He clutched Toyne's arm. Hold them. I am the dragon. Toyne spat, yanked his prince toward a tethered courser. But arrows whickered, one buried in Viserys' shoulder, another punctured Toyne's thigh. Chaos. From the smoke rode Jaime, visor up, eyes green fire. Surrender and I spare your men, he called above surf roar. Viserys drew a curved Myrish blade, hands trembling. False knight, usurper's whore. He charged. Jaime parried once. Viserys' sword spun from numbed fingers. A mailed fist struck the prince's jaw, dropping him to knees. Toyne raised an axe. An arrow from Alice Caron skewered his neck. The Golden Company standard dipped. Gold skull toppling into sand. Across the field Robert's roar shook heaven. His maul crushed a shield, then a skull, then another. Mercenary lines buckled. Within an hour, the field fell hushed, but for the sob of wounded and hiss of embers on wet sand. Renly, hair plastered with sweat, emerged from the fortress gate, 300 tired men behind him. He embraced Robert, eyes shining. I held, as you asked. Robert lifted his brother from the ground. You held, and I swear the realm shall remember. He turned to Jaime. And you, by all the gods, a tale for ages. Jaime dismounted, gauntlets sticky with blood, and knelt. Robert hauled him up into a crushing hug. Around them, stormlords cheered, the cry rolling up the stone face of the great drum tower. Stag and lion, stag and lion. Yet amid victory's heat, Jon Arryn studied the broken enemy camp. Among charred tents he saw Braavosi chests bearing the sigil of the Iron Bank, empty. His heart tightened. Coin still flowed somewhere. 3 days later, a council of war convened in Storm's End's Great Hall. Rain hammered drum towers, and wind keened through arrow slits. Firelight danced across the map, chalked hastily on oak boards. Coastlines, supply roads, sigils scrawled where loyalties lay uncertain. The Golden Company shattered, Stannis reported, bruised but resolute. Half surrendered, the rest fled into the disputed lands ships anchored offshore. Our galleys pursue but may not catch. Let deserters spread fear of Robert's hammer, Jaime said. Bezers lives, Jon reminded. We ship him to the dungeons of the Red Keep. Robert's gaze smoldered. Alive, he is a banner to rally rebellion. Dead, he is a martyr. Alive, he is a hostage, Tywin countered. Braavos may reconsider loans if their princeling sits in chains. A public trial, Varys suggested, would shame his backers, display your mercy, and underscore Jaime's capture. Mercy gilds victory, your grace. Jaime felt Robert's glance, raw mixture of love, trust, and calculation. At length Robert nodded. Trial. In King's Landing come harvest's end. Jon shifted. Another matter. The faith militant stirs. High Septon Silas balks at your union still, despite anointing. Sparrows flood the streets preaching purity. And he. Robert waved a dismissive hand. I'll clasp the High Septon's soft fingers with this. He brandished his war maul, sparks shedding. Laughter rumbled from some lords. But not all. Jaime leaned in. Steel may still hearts, but not lies. Give the faith something holy to bless. A reconstruction of the sept of the sisters, or alms for the poorhouses. Show piety in stone. Robert blinked, then grinned. A lion's counsel but a stag's coin. Done. Negotiations wound deep into night. Fleets repositioned to Dragonstone should word come of Daenerys across the sea. Ravens dispatched to Highgarden securing Mace Tyrell's pledge. His second son Garland to wed a Baratheon bastard daughter legitimized on the morrow. Alliances through matrimony, coin, and fear braided into a fragile net. When council ended, Robert found Jaime at Storm's End battlements overlooking the restless bay. Lantern light cast copper highlights in Jaime's hair. Beyond, forked lightning split clouds, turning waves to molten silver. Storms gave me life, Robert said, stepping beside him. When I was boy, I'd climb these walls to watch the sea rage. Knew then, it answered only the bold. Jaime's cloak snapped in salt wind. And now? Now I wonder whether boldness or cunning keeps realms. Jaime turned. Why not both? Robert studied him. Then drew from pouch a simple golden band set with a ruby. Lyanna's ruby, recovered from the trident. This was to crown a dream. Dreams die. He took Jaime's hand, calloused fingers warm, even in wind. Take it. Forge new dream. Jaime's throat tightened. A token from a ghost. A ghost I honor, not worship. You are flesh, blood, breath. Robert slid the ring onto Jaime's finger beside their silver bond. We build forward. Thunder growled like applause. Jaime pressed his brow to Robert's. Forward then. Below, waves shattered against rock, each crash an oath renewed. Autumn stained the Kingsroad gold and scarlet when the royal procession returned to King's Landing. Viserys rode in an iron cage, his silver hair cropped, wrists shackled. Small folk pelted the cage with rotten fruit, chanting, "No more dragons!" Jaime rode ahead, banner streaming, a symbol not of kingslaying now, but of victory. Tywin trailed with a train of wagons laden with mercenary plunder. Silk bolts, Marish lace, Braavosi dyes, destined for royal coffers. At the city gates a surprise awaited. Cersei Lannister in emerald velvet, hair coiled in gilt nets, flanked by 100 Lannister men-at-arms. Her smile was bright steel. Jaime's reins tightened. "Sister," he greeted. "I see Father allowed you freedom. Father allows nothing. We take." She curtsied low before Robert. "Your grace. The city rejoices at your triumph." Her eyes flicked to Jaime's ring, lingered. "And your bond." Robert dismounted, offered an arm. "Walk with us, Lady Cersei." Thus they entered, rumors blooming like night blossoms. That evening, feast fires roared anew. Musicians played a Reacher march as Robert raised goblet in salute to Storm's End victors. Jaime noted Cersei at Tywin's elbow, whispers rippling whenever her green gaze found his. He felt Varys' watch, spider still. As pyres of oak logs snapped, Ned Stark arrived from the north gate, dust of travel fresh on cloak. Snow came early to moat Kaelin, he told Robert, but the north stands with you. Ned clasped Jaime's gauntlet. You fought well, Lord Consort. Hardly a lord, Jaime answered. More shield than lord. For a king, a shield is lord enough. Ned's eyes held complicated respect. With wine deep in veins, Robert announced. 3 days hence, the judgment of the dragon. The hall thundered approval. Cersei's smile curved. Mercy or fire, your grace? Robert winked. We'll see which lights the realm brighter. In dungeons damp as crypt bowels, Jaime visited Viserys the night before trial. The prince crouched on straw, chain clinking. Lantern lit his gaunt face with feverish sheen. Come to gloat, Kingslayer. Come to warn, Jaime said. Plead for mercy. Speak of Ironbank meddling. You may yet ride free to Essos in exile. Viserys laughed, brittle. Mercy from a usurper's cur? I spit on mercy. Your bastard crown will fall. Dragons endure. Jaime squatted. Dragons, yes. They endure in legend sung by children staring at stars. But men made of blood, they burn. Viserys lunged, chains snapping him short. Jaime rose, turned away. Behind him, Viserys hissed. How does it feel, betting a brute? Does he crush you like he crushed my brother's chest? Jaime paused, hand on door ring. He crushes fear, he said softly. And fear is all you ever were. He left the prince to darkness. Morning of the trial dawned crisp. The throne room swarmed. Nobles in riot of silks, small folk packed on scaffolds, faith militant brothers in 7-pointed star mail. High Septon Silas presided beside the Iron Throne, though his eyes betrayed disquiet. Viserys, stripped of finery, stood before marble steps, wrists unbound but flanked by gold cloaks. Pycelle read charges: treason, foreign invasion, pact with Ironbank, conspiracy with outlawed Blackfire Line. When asked plea, Viserys' voice rang proud. I am Viserys of House Targaryen, rightful king. I plead innocent and demand trial by combat. A roar of shock. Robert leaned forward, interest flaring. Who fights for you? The prince's smile sliced. Sir Barristan Selmy. Gasps. Selmy stepped from Kingsguard line, white cloak billowing. Age had silvered his hair, but his back was steel straight. He bowed to Robert. Your Grace, I swore to guard the royal line. My oaths bade me protect Aerys, they bind me still to his heir. Robert's jaw nodded. Selmy's honor was legend. To deny combat might fracture nobility's trust. He eyed Jaime. Kingslayer. Now King's shield. Jaime stepped forward. I defend the crown, he declared. Trial by combat answered. Selmy's blue eyes met his, sorrowful yet resolute. Then let honor be weighed. Silas raised trembling hands. By the will of the Seven, let champions take the field. The throne room cleared chairs. Knights drew a ring of spears. Sun poured through high windows, stripping dust motes and shafts of gold. Selmy saluted with a master's flourish. Jaime mirrored, Blackfire glinting. They closed. Steel rang like bells. Selmy's footwork was poetry, each stroke a stanza. Jaime matched youth's vigor against seasoned grace, sparks spraying. He remembered Selmy's tutelage years earlier at Lannisport tourney. Now every lesson returned, mirrored then broken. Minutes bled. Selmy feinted high, cut low. Jaime parried, riposted, forced retreat. Sweat dripped silver. From gallery, Robert gripped thrown arm spikes, white-knuckled. Selmy's boot slipped on spilled oil. Jaime seized moment, shoulder checking, disarming with twist. Blackfire's pommel struck Selmy's helm. The old knight fell to knee, sword skittering. Silence fell like snowfall. Jaime lowered point. "Yield, sir." Selmy gazed upward, pride warring with duty. Slowly, he bowed head. "I yield." Crowd exhaled. Viserys shrieked, lunged for guard's dagger. A gold cloak tackled him. Robert rose. Guilt proven. High Septon murmured final blessing. Executioners dragged Viserys, screaming, to the yard of ashes. Robert turned to Selmy, elevating him anew. "Rise, Lord Commander, honor undimmed." But Selmy shook head. "I served 2 kings, both fell. Let younger steel guard the realm." He placed white cloak at Jaime's feet. The Kingslayer has become the realm's truest shield. Shock rippled. Jaime stooped, lifted the cloak, knelt before Robert. "Permission, your grace." He draped the white upon Robert's shoulders. Robert laughed, pulling Jaime upright. "I need no white. Wear it yourself. You shall command my guard." In turn. Thus Jaime Lannister, once reviled, became Lord Commander, lion cloak over white, crimson over snow. Outside, bells tolled death of the dragon. Melted gold poured over Viserys' skull, echo of brother's fate. But Robert halted the molten flow and commuted beheading. Mercy ever tempered wrath. Winter's first spear of frost touched Kingsroad when ravens brought word from Bravos. Iron Bank demanded debt repayment or seizure of crown ships in neutral ports. Robert convened council. Quarrelton Chelsted quailed. Tywin's eyebrow arched disdain. "Pay them," Robert snarled. "With Lannister gold?" "My gold," Tywin said, "buys loyalty better spent at home." Jaime, seated at Robert's right, intervened. "Then we forge coin without Lannister or crown. Sell Braavosi concessions. Grant Tyrell's exclusive harbor tariffs. Mace Tyrell floats a loan to match the bank." Tywin's gaze flicked. "A clever knot. Braavos will relent when profit remains," Varys murmured. Over weeks, a network of credit notes, Reach grain futures, Dornish wine ties, and Lannisport silver mines underwrote a payment schedule. The Iron Bank blinked, postponed demands, file closed. For now. Yet tension knit court data. Faith militant procession, march steps of Septi daily, demanding annulment. Cersei whispered into ears of disgruntled nobles. A realm of unnatural bed. Tywin neither endorsed nor silenced. Playing his long game. Stannis harbored frost, once heir apparent, now ambiguous. One raven's black wings changed tempo. Daenerys Targaryen, widowed Khaleesi of a broken Khalasar, had wed a magister of Qarth, and sailed west with 3 hatchling dragons. The council chamber chilled. Robert's eyes burned. More dragons. Jaime laid palm on war map. ... Then we prepare. He oversaw forging of scorpion bolt throwers using Kuhoric blueprints. Stannis doubled fleet patrols along stepstones. Ned drilled city watch. But unrest festered within. Sparrow riots erupted in Flea Bottom. Faith banners clashing with gold cloaks. Jaime rode into Maelstrom one night, helm bare, voice ringing, lay down stones or answer steel. His presence parted mobs, but rumors turned. Kingslayer would butcher the poor. Cersei played whispers like harp strings. In brothel alcoves, tongues wagged. Robert's bed cold but for wine. Lion flaunted ring of ruby stolen from beloved dead. Twin sisters spurned, plotting. One moonless night Jaime found his chambers ransacked, sheets slit, ruby ring vanished. On blood-spattered pillow lay a parchment. Abomination shall not rule. 7-point star, drawn in crimson. He donned cloak, strode through deserted corridors to Robert's suite. 2 Kingsguard lay unconscious at door, drafted with honeyed wine. Inside, Shadow knelt above Robert's sleeping form, dagger uplifted. Jaime hurled a blade. It slammed the intruder's shoulder, twisting him aside. Robert lurched up, roaring. Jaime tackled the assassin, mask ripping. A Septon's shaved tonsure revealed. They grappled. Dagger nicked Jaime's cheek before Robert's fist caved skull. Breathing hard, Robert clutched Jaime. "Your blood." "A scratch," Jaime said, swiping crimson. Gold cloaks dragged the body away. Under torchlight they read confession. Fanatic faction within faith plotting regicide, spurred by Cersei's subsidies, funneled through silent sisters. Fury eclipsed Robert's face. He burst into council at dawn, slammed blood-stained parchment before Tywin. "Your daughter spills treason." Tywin's mask cracked, nostrils flared. "Cersei acts without my leave. She will answer." Cersei was brought, clad in mourning black, though none could name who she mourned. Robert advanced. "You funded knives for my heart." Cersei held gaze steady. "I cleansed the realm." Robert's maul twitched. Jaime stepped between. "She stands trial." Tywin's voice cut ice. "Lannister gold is yours, King Robert. My daughter's life is mine." Stannis growled. "No lord is above king's justice." Tywin's glare met Robert's. Hall held breath. At length Robert nodded. "Take her to cells beneath Baelor's sept. The High Septon shall judge her." Jaime exhaled silent. Cersei's green eyes seared him as guards led her away. The trial of Cersei Lannister drew every lord and lowborn to sept steps. High Septon Silas, now cowed by king's strength, presided. Charges: conspiracy, funding faith militant beyond charter, attempted regicide, inciting riot. Cersei stood proud, gold hair loose, no tears. She demanded trial by combat. Robert granted. Her champion, Sir Gregor Clegane, the Mountain, the crown's champion. Sir Brienne of Tarth, newly sworn to Kingsguard, heart bright as summer sky. Gasps rippled. Mountain versus maiden. Arena raised in Dragon Pit ruins. Jaime sat with helm in lap, agony warring. Duty bound him to impartiality. Love for sister knotted inside. Robert's gauntlet closed over Jaime's wrist. Trust, steel, and truth. Combat savage. Gregor tower, greatsword cleaving air. Brienne, quick, shield fleur-de-lis, sparking under each blow. She rolled. Struck tendon. Gregor roared, backhanded, dented shield, splintered bone. Crowd cried. Brienne staggered, bloodied. Yet she lunged. Drive of hope, pommel to jaw, sword tip sliding through gap of gorget. Gregor's eyes bulged. He sank roaring, blood fontaining. Silas declared guilt proven. Cersei's scream echoed stone. Sentence: lifetime exile to silent sisters, vow of voiceless penance. Tywin bowed head, yet said nothing as daughter veiled in gray. Thus a thorn removed, but roots of discord remained. Winter deepened. Word came. Daenerys, dragons grown to tent size, landed in Dorne with Cell fleet. Prince Doran, gout-ridden yet cunning, feigned hospitality. Dornish spears massed. Robert assembled grand host on Mander fields. Reach knights in apple green, Riverlands banners of trout, Stormland stag, Lion of west, Direwolf of north. He marched south. Dragonfire horizon. On March Eve, Jaime visited Ned's pavilion. Inside, stark polished Valyrian ice. He looked up. The realm stands on edge of blade. Jaime nodded. 2 kings, dead to dragons within a lifetime. Let not a third. Ned sheathed sword. You fought Rhaegar. Know their ferocity. I know hearts of men and weakness of legends. Dragons fly, but chains of strategy ground them. Nine. Together they drafted plan. Faint at Boneway draws dragon to open desert where ballista nets of Dornish make a wait. Tipped with basilisk venom. Garland Tyrell volunteers to lead decoy. Ned commands longbowmen on ridge. Jaime leads Kingsguard cavalry in sudden flank when dragons swoop. At Ghost Hill's sun-baked flats, plan unfurled. Garland's banner retreated, feigned panic. Daenerys rode Drogon aloft, Rhaegal and Viserion spiraling. Ballistas unleashed. Nets tangled Rhaegal, venom darts piercing wing. Beast shrieked, crashed in sandstorm cloud. Viserion veered, flame jetting harmless where quicklime trenches flared, wall of white heat repelling. Drogon stooped upon Jaime's cavalry. Earth trembled. Jaime spurred into headwind, cloak whipping. Lances angled with mirrored plates to dazzle. Drogon's smoke blinded. But Ned's longbow volley whipped from ridge, shafts whistling. Obsidian tipped. Gifts from children's caves north of wall. One arrow lodged beneath jaw hinge. Drogon reeled, flame sputtering. Daenerys clung, blood on lip. Robert thundered from rear with warhammer. As Dragon's wings skimmed ground, Robert leapt. Drove Maul into scorched scale plating. The same strike that shattered Rhaegar's armor. Bone cracked. Drogon roared agony, bucking Queen loose. Jaime vaulted from saddle, catching her mid-fall, rolling across grit. Sand scorched, wind howled. Drogon beat wings skyward, trailing smoke. Viserion following. Dragons fled toward sky's bleeding sun. Soldiers froze, awed. Jaime rose, Daenerys in arms, eyes violet, stunned. He set her gently. Robert approached, Maul smoking. Dothraki screamed from dunes, but Stannis' flanking pikes closed, scattering. Daenerys stared at Robert. You kill kings but spare queens. Robert's chest heaved. I spare the realm blood. He offered hand. Yield and live. She looked to Jaime. Green eyes met violet. Slowly she bowed head. Thus the last dragon kneeled. Not to sword but to choice. Peace accord signed at Sunspear. Daenerys exiled to Isle of Cedars with dragons bound by magic chains of Ashai. There to study lore and pose no threat. Dorne received expanded autonomy. Iron Bank debt cancelled in exchange for trade monopoly on Dragonglass. Years slid. King Robert and Lord Commander Jaime molded realm. Faith militant subdued. Walls of Baelors, scepter paired with king's gold. Orphanages founded in Stormlands, coin from Tyrell harvests. Margaery wed Renly, binding reach. Stannis governed Dragonstone, stern but fair. Robert mellowed, belly rounding on feasts, but mind honed on governance. Jaime reforged Kingsguard. Brienne, Garland, Sir Davos Seaworth, knighted for valor. Selmy returned as Counselor Emeritus. Tales grew. Kingslayer redeemed. Lion shielding stag. On icy morning, Lyanna's tomb was opened in Winterfell Godswood. Robert Ned. Jaime stood as stone effigy lifted. Robert placed crown of winter roses upon sarcophagus. Tears steaming in frosty breath. Sleep, sweet wolf, he whispered. Jaime's hand steadied him. Spring followed heavy snows. At tourney of River Run, children chased painted wooden dragons. Banners of lion stag fluttered alongside direwolf trout. Small folk cheered king and consort riding abreast. Ruby ring and Blackfire reflecting sun. That night, under blossoms of Summerheart tree, Robert spoke quietly. In war we forged unity. In peace we must guard it. He took Jaime's hand, pressed gentle. When I am gone, the realm will look to you. Jaime shook head. They will look to what we built together. Robert smiled, lines of laughter and battle etched deep. Either way, hold fast. He raised goblet, wine catching starlight. To storms conquered, to lions tamed, to dragons chained, and to a realm that dares to love. Jaime clinked, echo soft. To love. Their gaze lifted to distant constellations. Hunter, maiden, lion. Every story sewn anew across velvet sky. Beneath the seven kingdoms breathed uneasy peace, yet peace nonetheless. Wrought by unlikely bond. Thunder of a stag's heart. Quiet ferocity of a lion's will. And the stubborn dream that steel could birth not only ruin, but redemption. Years would record wars yet to come. Heroes unborn, betrayals unforeseen. But in the songs of halls from Dorne's red sands to last hearth's frozen weirwoods, minstrels would pluck bright strings and sing of the day. A storm wed a lion. A kingslayer rose a shield, and a realm, scarred, proud, and longing, found in audacity a different kind of crown.